DBT Emotion Regulation 1. Emotion regulation is the ability to control or influence which emotions you have, when you have them, and how you experience and express them. Regulating emotions can be automatic as well as consciously controlled. In this module, we'll first focus on increasing conscious awareness and control of emotions. Second, we'll provide so much practice regulating emotions that you'll overlearn the skills. Ultimately, the regulation should become automatic. Emotions are out of control or dysregulated when you are unable, despite your best efforts, to change which emotions you have, when you have them, or how you experience or express them. It's difficult for people to manage their emotions when they don't understand how emotions work. The point of this section is that knowledge is power. Firstly, we're going to think about what emotions do for us. There are reasons why humans and other mammals have emotions. Emotions appear to serve several physical and psychological purposes. Emotions colour people's lives and give them depth and differentiation. For many people, strong emotions are linked to creativity and expression. Emotional behaviours evolved as immediate, automatic and efficient ways to solve common problems that humans and other emotional mammals must solve to survive. They have three important functions: to motivate action, to communicate to others, and to communicate to ourselves. We need all of them. The purpose of regulating emotions is not to get rid of them. We need them for survival. Now we're going to look into what emotions do for us in more detail. The first point is that emotions motivate and organise us for action. They prepare us physically for action, and the action urges connected to specific emotions are largely hardwired in our biology. Hardwired means it's an automatic, built-in part of our behaviour. Emotions also save time in getting us to act in important situations. We can react to situations extremely fast. For example, if you saw a child in the middle of the road and a car coming, you would feel an emotion, fear, and that emotion would prompt you to run to save the child. You don't stop to think about it, you just do it. So your emotion has motivated your behaviour without you having to take time to think. Emotions can be very hard to change when the associated behaviour is very important. For example, if your house is on fire and you need to run for your life, it would be very hard to stop being afraid before you get away from the fire. The second thing that emotions do for us is communicate to and influence others. Facial expressions can communicate faster than words, and they're biologically hardwired aspects of emotions. They allow other people to understand us, and for us to understand others. Several facial expressions of emotion have automatic effects on other people. For example, an infant reacts spontaneously to an adult's smile or look of fright. This automatic reaction serves infants well until they learn to use words. And even after children can use words, their facial expressions are still very helpful. Having both verbal and non-verbal forms of emotional expression means having two ways of communication for important situations. Our emotional expressions can influence others whether we intend it or not. Our body language and our voice tone can also be hardwired. Like it or not, they also communicate our emotions to others. An example of that might be expressions of warmth and friendliness towards an acquaintance, then resulting in a later favour, or disappointment expressed by a supervisor might result in improved work by an employee. We can often experience problems when verbal and non-verbal expressions of emotion don't match. When non-verbal expressions of emotions don't go with what a person says, other people will almost always trust the non-verbal expressions over the verbal ones. Perhaps you can think of times when your expressions of emotions were misread, or when you misread the emotions of someone else. The third thing that our emotions do is communicate to ourselves. Emotions can be signals to check things out. This is what's meant by the saying, listen to your gut. Likewise, when we say that a person has a good feel for a situation, we're referring to emotions as signals. Sometimes signals about a situation will be picked up unconsciously, and then we might have an emotional reaction, but might not be sure about what set off the reaction. Feeling something doesn't feel right about this, or I had a feeling something was going to happen and it did, are some of the signals that we might get. Sometimes we treat emotions as if they are facts about the world. The stronger the emotion, the stronger our belief that the emotion is based on fact. Whilst our emotions are always valid, It doesn't necessarily make them facts. For example, if I feel incompetent, I am. Or if I get depressed when left alone, I shouldn't be left alone. Some people use their emotions as evidence that what they believe is correct. If we assume that our emotions represent facts about the world, we might use them to justify our thoughts or our actions. This can be trouble if our emotions get us to ignore the facts. We're now going to think about what makes it hard to regulate your emotions. Regulating emotions is very hard. Biology can be one factor that makes it particularly difficult. Some children are more emotionally sensitive than others, and they might remain that way as children and adults. Emotional intensity also differs across people. High emotional sensitivity and intensity can get in the way of learning emotion regulation strategies and of using already learned strategies. One way to think about biological differences in emotionality is to consider the children we know or have known. Most parents with multiple children talk about the amazing differences among their children in emotional temperament, differences that become evident shortly after birth. Another factor that makes emotion regulation difficult is a lack of skill. When you have skill deficits, you actually don't know how to change or regulate your emotions and emotion-related actions. You also might not know how to get yourself regulated enough to even want to lower the intensity of your emotions. Not having a skill is very different from not having motivation. People learn emotion regulation skills starting in infancy. The back and forth exchange of emotions between mother and baby is the start of emotion regulation training. Child rearing is, in many ways, a task of teaching children how to regulate their emotions. Reinforcement of emotional behaviours can also make emotion regulation difficult. As we discussed, emotions have functions, and when the functions of certain emotions are reinforced in a particular situation, it can be extremely difficult to change these emotions. For example, if every time you're angry, people give you what you want, it'll be very difficult for you to learn how to regulate your anger. Getting what you want when you're angry then reinforces the angry outbursts. Regulating emotions takes a lot of effort and energy. It also takes willingness. Moodiness and lack of energy can also interfere with your willingness to do the work emotion regulation requires. You may have the capability, but it may be interfered with by your current mood. At times, your emotions can be so extreme that you simply can't get into wise mind in order to figure out what to do. When you're highly aroused, worry thoughts and ruminations can keep the emotion firing like a computer program that's automatically started when you get highly emotional. Worries like, "Why did I do that?" get started and trick your brain into thinking that there's actually an answer to the worries. Usually, however, there is no answer, so the worries go round and round. Often, worries function as a way to escape your emotions. Escaping your emotions, however, keeps you from attending to them effectively. You may have the skills, but ruminating interferes with using your skills. Finally, some of the myths that we hold about emotion can also get in the way of us being able to regulate our emotions. Faulty beliefs about emotions, the value of expressing them, and the ease of recognising and controlling emotions can cause much trouble when we're trying to learn emotion regulation. Some myths invalidate emotional experiences, such as believing that negative emotions are selfish, or that we can control all of our emotions if we just use willpower. What's invalidating is that these myths in no way resonate with our experience of our own emotions. Other myths overvalue emotions, and these beliefs ignore the effectiveness of emotions and their expressions, and assert that if we have them, we should not change them. Both sets of beliefs can interfere with emotion regulation. In this session, we've looked at what our emotions do for us, and things that get in the way of us being able to regulate our emotions effectively. In the next session, we'll look at describing emotions and action urges.